I woke up as the world's most wanted criminal. The last thing Deven Marsh remembered was closing his laptop at 2:47 a.m., having just finished the final chapter of Chains of the Condemned, the most criminally unrated web novel in existence. He'd rated it 5 stars, typed a tearful farewell comment in the discussion thread, and passed out face first on his keyboard. The first thing Deven Marsh saw upon opening his eyes was a bounty poster with his own face on it. Not his face, exactly. The jaw was sharper. The eyes were silver instead of brown, and there was a jagged scar running from the left temple to the chin, like someone had tried to sign their name on him. But the name printed in bold red letters beneath the illustration left zero room for interpretation. Rael Ashvorne, the Hollow King, dead or alive, reward, 500,000 gold crowns. Said Deven. He was standing in the middle of a cobblestone street. The buildings around him leaned toward each other like old men sharing secrets. Timber-framed, lantern-lit, distinctly medieval. People were staring. A woman had dropped her basket of bread. Look, a small child was pointing at him with the specific fearless honesty that only children and very drunk adults possess. That's him, someone whispered. The Hollow King. Deven looked down at himself. Dark coat, black gloves, a sword on his hip that he absolutely did not know how to use, and floating in the corner of his vision, barely visible unless he focused, was a translucent blue panel. System notification. Welcome, Inheritor. You have taken possession of the body of Rael Ashvorne, Rank SS criminal, former commander of the Ashvorne Rebellion, and sole survivor of the Battle of Thornwall. Your inherited infamy level is currently maximum. Please try not to die in the next 10 minutes. Deven stared at the notification. The notification stared back. Okay, he said quietly. Okay, this is fine. A crossbow bolt punched through his coat sleeve and embedded itself in a barrel behind him. This is not fine. He ran. It wasn't dignified. It wasn't the cool, measured retreat of a man who'd once commanded armies and carved his name into the history of a kingdom through sheer bloody-minded willpower. It was a full sprint, arms flailing, nearly tripped over a cat scramble through the narrow backstreets of what his frantically skimming system panel informed him was a city of Coldenmere, capital of the Varent Empire, and, as luck would have it, the single place in the entire world most likely to have him executed on sight. The system was generous with information, at least. As he ran, panels kept popping up whether he wanted them or not. Emits a low-level aura of authority and menace. Effect scales with infamy level. Current status, maximum. Warning, people near you may experience involuntary feelings of dread, submission, or the urge to kneel. That explained the bread woman. Hume's axe. Memory of the Nobel fire. Memory of the meat, or Deven C. Memory of the Nobel fire. Raise, meat, or Deven C. Insect, or Deven. Cold line. 45 seconds. That one he immediately tried to activate and managed to blink himself directly into a stack of crates, scattering turnips across the alleyway. Brilliant Deven minute, mother, Brilliant Deven muttered, scrambling up with a turnip in his hair. He ducked into a doorway as a squad of imperial soldiers jogged past, their silver and red armor clanking in coordinated urgency. He pressed himself flat, heart hammering, and tried to remember anything useful from the novel he just spent 300 chapters reading. Rael Ashvorne, the Hollow King. He knew this character. He'd loved this character from a safe narrative distance. Tragic backstory. Orphaned by the Empire's eastern expansion, rose through the ranks of the rebel forces on sheer terrifying competence, won 17 battles in a row, and then was betrayed by his own lieutenant and supposedly killed at Thornwall. The story had picked up 5 years later with a new protagonist who was trying to piece together what had actually happened. Nobody had ever explained what happened to Rael's body. Apparently, it had been waiting for a sleep-deprived web novel reader from Manchester. You have turnip in your hair. Deven spun. crouched on top of the crates he'd just demolished, eating an apple with the calm energy of someone who found citywide manhunts mildly entertaining, was a girl who looked about 17. She had dark brown skin, close-cropped natural hair, and the kind of sharp, evaluating eyes that immediately made Deven feel like he was being sorted and filed. She wore a patchwork brown jacket over a grey shirt, and a long tool roll was strapped across her back. Not weapons, he realized, but the handles of various instruments he couldn't identify. "You're Rael Ashvorne," she said. "Technically, you're also moving, like someone who's never held a sword." She tilted her head, which is strange, because Rael Ashvorne allegedly killed 40 soldiers at Thornwall before they brought him down. He was famous for his footwork. Deven opened his mouth, closed it. "You're not him," she said simply. "Not really. Who are you?" There was a long pause. Somewhere nearby, someone was shouting about the Hollow King being spotted near the Tannis district. "My name's Deven," he said. "I'm from very far away. I read a lot of books, and I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing." The girl considered this. Then she hopped off the crates, tucked the apple core into her pocket, and stuck out her hand. "Petra Solwind. I'm a system engineer. I design and modify skill frameworks for the imperial military. Theoretically. Currently, I'm a deserter, because it turns out I have some ethical objections to what the military does with the frameworks I design." She glanced at the alley entrance. "They're also trying to kill me. Want to be in trouble together?" Deven shook her hand. "That's the best offer I've had all day." Petra's hideout was a rented basement 3 streets away, accessed through a bakery whose elderly owner either didn't notice or didn't care about the parade of fugitives through her flower storage. The space was small, lit by a cluster of glowing runestones, and absolutely covered in hand-drawn diagrams of system architecture, the underlying mechanics that governed skills, levels, and the floating panels that had apparently been part of this world for generations. "I've been studying Rael Ashvorne's skill set for 2 years, Petra said, spreading a diagram across the table. "The Hollow King system build is unique. Most people get their skills assigned at birth or through standard leveling. His were restructured. Someone with very high-level system access rewrote his base framework when he was a child. Removed the standard limiters." "Removed delimiters," Deven repeated. "Meaning what?" "Meaning his skills don't have normal caps. Sovereign's pressure scales infinitely. Hollow Step can theoretically extend to city-scale range. He wasn't just a good soldier. He was built to be something the system doesn't normally allow." She tapped the diagram. "The Empire figured that out around the time he started winning too many battles. That's why Thornwall happened. They didn't defeat him. They deleted his access. They shut his skills off? They tried. But you can't fully delete a system build. You can only suppress it. Which means somewhere in that body you're currently wearing, Rael Ashvorne's full build is locked behind an imperial suppression key." Petra looked at him steadily. "I know how to remove it." Deven stared at her. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because the person who restructured Rael's system when he was a child was my mother," Petra said quietly. "She's been in an imperial prison for 6 years, and the only leverage I have to get her out is the thing she built." A pause. "I need the Hollow King. You appear to be what I've got." Before Deven could process any of that, his system panel chimed. "FME event, Imperial Inquisitor deployed to Caldenmere. Inquisitor Seraph Vel has been assigned your termination. Estimated arrival at current location, 20 minutes. Skills, Truth-Binding, Soul Severance, Suppression Lock Mastery." Petra was already rolling up the diagram. "Then let's not waste them." Seraph Vel arrived in 17. He was tall, unhurried, and wore the white coat of the Imperial Inquisition, like it had been tailored specifically to make him look like someone's final memory. He walked through the bakery without breaking stride, past the flour and the startled elderly owner, and down the stairs to the basement as if he'd known exactly where they were the entire time. Which, Deven realized, he had. "Truth-Binding," Petra said tightly, pulling Deven back. "Passive range. He's been tracking us through the system since we were in the alley. Every time you accessed your panel, it pinged him." That would have been useful to know earlier. I didn't know he was already in the city. Sereth stopped at the bottom of the stairs and looked at them both with the expression of a man completing a very dull piece of administrative work. His eyes moved to Deven and stayed there. The Hollow King's body, he said, walking around with a tourist inside it. The Emperor will find that amusing. His gaze shifted briefly to Petra. Miss Solwind, your mother says hello. She's been quite cooperative lately. Petra's jaw tightened, but she didn't speak. Deven's system panel was firing notifications he wasn't reading. He was too busy thinking. Not about fighting, he'd already ruled that out. Rael was rank SS, and Deven's most successful use of his inherited skills so far had been falling into crates. Direct confrontation was a fast route to soul severance, whatever that was, and the name alone suggested he didn't want to find out. But Petra had spent 2 years studying Rael Ashvorne's system build, and she'd said the suppression could be removed. How long does it take? Dan said quietly, not looking at her. To remove the suppression key? A beat. If I had an hour and a system terminal, 30 minutes. If I'm doing it manually, in the field, with someone actively trying to stop me. She paused. 3 minutes, if you give me something to work with. What do you need? I need you to access Sovereign's pressure deliberately and sustain it. Maximum conscious output. It'll create enough system interference to mask what I'm doing. Sereth was walking toward them at that same unhurried pace. I'd recommend not doing whatever you're planning. Deven had read 300 chapters of a web novel about this world. He knew the lore, the history, the mechanics. He knew that Rael Ashvorne had won 17 battles, not because of raw power, but because he understood things about people. What they feared, what they needed, what they couldn't afford to admit. He knew that Sovereign's pressure wasn't just an aura. According to Chapter 84's extended lore dump, which he had read at 1 a.m., and inexplicably retained, it was a communication, the body's way of expressing, with total clarity, the gap between itself and everything around it. He stopped trying to fight the body he was in. He stopped thinking of the skills as foreign objects, and thought instead about the feeling behind them. The weight of 17 battles. The grief of a betrayal. The particular furious dignity of someone who had been declared dead by people who were afraid of him. He didn't know if he was feeling Rael Ashvorne's emotions, or his own. It didn't matter. He let it out. The temperature in the room didn't drop, exactly. But Rael stopped walking. Sovereign's pressure, conscious activation. The room stones flickered. The diagrams on the table stirred. Sereth's hand moved toward his own system panel and then stilled, caught in the interference. Not paralyzed, not bound, but hesitating, which was apparently something Inquisitors didn't normally do. Interesting, Sereth said, and for the first time he sounded something other than bored. Behind Deven, Petra worked. He could hear her muttering, hear the strange harmonic hum of someone manually interfacing with system architecture without a terminal. His vision was going slightly grey at the edges. Sustaining the pressure consciously felt like holding a door shut against a storm. Not impossible, but deeply unpleasant. Sereth took another step. Deven pushed harder. You know, Sereth said, the Emperor was going to offer you amnesty. The body, at least. We have uses for a Rank SS build under controlled conditions. Hard pass, Deven said. Done, said Petra. Suppression key. Removed. Then, hollow step. Range. Extended. Cold down. 3 seconds. Deven grabbed Petra's wrist and they were gone. They reappeared on the rooftop, 4 streets away. Then, 3 streets further. Then, at the city's eastern wall. Each jump was cleaner than the last. The skill settling into something that felt, bewilderingly, like second nature, like a language she'd never spoken but somehow recognized. On the 5th jump, they were outside the city entirely, standing in a field of tall grass as Coldenmere's walls receded behind them in the early morning light. Deven sat down in the grass, breathing hard. Petra sat next to him. Her hands, he noticed, were shaking slightly. The aftermath manual west of the main land set up fire steps, many of the back of managers, fighters, and son. Back of terror. They made camp in the woods 2 miles from the road, in a hollow between 3 old trees that Petra had clearly used before. There was a fire ring already there, and a cache of supplies wrapped in oilcloth, tucked under a root. You planned for having to run, Deven said. I've been planning to run for 8 months. I just didn't have anywhere to run to until last week. She unwrapped the hachet and started laying things out with efficient, practiced movements. My mother is in Thornwall Prison. That's not a coincidence. It's where they keep the people the Empire considers too dangerous to execute and too useful to release. The only way in is through an official Inquisition clearance, or with someone who can blink through walls, Deven finished. Petra glanced at him. You really aren't Rael Ashvorne. No. But you're in his body, with his skills, and apparently his instincts, based on what just happened back there. She studied him with that same evaluating look from the alley. What are you, exactly? Deven thought about how to explain web novels, isekai tropes, and the particular genre convention of dying in your own world and waking up somewhere else. He decided the full explanation could wait. I'm someone who knows this world very well from the outside, he said, and absolutely nothing about it from the inside. He paused. I know what the Ashvorne Rebellion was actually fighting for. I know why Thornwall happened, and who gave the order. I know things about the Empire that your mother probably suspects, but couldn't prove. Petra's hand stilled on the supply cache. The novel I read had a lot of lore, Deven added, including things the main characters never found out. A long silence. The fire crackled between them, small and careful. We'll need more than information to get my mother out, Petra said finally. We'll need allies, resources. A plan that doesn't rely entirely on you not falling into any more crates. That was one time. It was formative. Deven looked up through the tree canopy at the pale early sky. Somewhere back in Coldenmere, an Inquisitor was filing a report. The Empire knew the Hollow King's suppression was broken. Things were going to get complicated faster than he'd like, but he had a body that could blink through walls. He had 300 chapters of lore that this world's inhabitants didn't know they were living inside. And he had, apparently, a system that had been built to be something the Empire was afraid of. He'd spent most of his adult life reading other people's stories, annotating them, rating them, posting 15-paragraph comments in discussion threads that 12 people read. It occurred to him, sitting in a forest outside a city that wanted him dead, that this was the first time he'd ever been in one. Right, he said. Tell me everything you know about Thornwall Prison. Petra looked at him for a moment. Then something shifted in her expression. Not quite a smile, but the structural foundation of one. The thing that comes before trust decides to make itself official. She reached into the cache and pulled out a rolled map. Start from the eastern checkpoint, she said, and don't fall into anything.